Welcome back. We're discussing the state of immigration in Canada. Has this been a plus? Has this been a negative? What is the path going forward for our federal government? And joining me again to have that conversation is Aaron Wudrick. Aaron, just before we went to commercial break, we were discussing NIMBYism, which is like not in my backyard, say syndrome, if you will. And a lot of people, you're right, they don't like their neighborhoods to change. But if you live in an urban center near the center core, there usually is a call for increased intensification of that neighborhood. Where do you see immigration parlaying into development policy in municipalities? Because normally municipalities are not usually a large voice at the immigration table. That's more of a federal issue. So how is that now working hand in glove?
Yeah, it's different levels of government are responsible for different sides of this equation, right? So on the demand side, the number of people looking for houses, that's a federal issue. They control immigration. The provinces have some input on that, but it's largely federal. When it comes to the supply side on housing, that is largely controlled by zoning rules at the municipal level. So you can see how there's a mismatch. The federal government may want to bring X number, 600,000, a million people in, but depending on where they end up in the country, if say a lot of them want to go to a city in the GTA, if the municipalities there aren't building enough housing supply, that's going to create a mismatch. So there has been a mismatch between who's holding the levers on supply and demand in this equation, and that's the thing that's really put us in the position we're in today.
And now earlier you referenced the terrible image of international students simply not being able to find housing and sleeping under an overpass. That is shocking. And yet it's something that we had no idea existed until I guess some investigative journalists have exposed this. So we have international students coming, paying top dollar. What's happening to them?
Yeah, in a lot of cases, they are finding themselves on the street. Some of them are living sort of, 8 of them in a place that's got 3 bedrooms. You hear all kinds of stories like this, and it shouldn't surprise anyone. I mean, again, Canadians already here can't even find housing, so it shouldn't surprise us that when you have international students, they arrive in Canada the first time, they've been promised that this is a ticket to a better life in the future, and they find there's nowhere for them to live. They're being charged through the nose at an institution that may have a less than sterling reputation, and they just find they've been sold a bill of goods. So I think people need to be careful. There's a lot of sentiment that is sort of blaming immigrants for this, but we need to remember a lot of them are as much victims as we are. They've been
Yes.
sold a bill of goods and basically been taken advantage of by unscrupulous agents who are simply trying to profit off the backs of these students in sort of getting them into Canada.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so what is the attraction to international students? Why do colleges and universities and other schools covet those international students?
It is a pure cash cow. So, as a lot of people will know, universities and colleges in Canada get most of their revenue from the government and charge students tuition. But they have severe caps on what they can charge domestic Canadian students because politically it's very unpopular. So, they cap domestic student charges. They can charge whatever they want to international students. So you can see how immediately they become a very attractive proposition, especially for colleges in Ontario in particular. They can charge double or triple in some cases what they charge Canadians for tuition. And so that becomes a very big source of revenue for them. And that largely explains why they have pursued this aggressive strategy into trying to bring over international students to go to their schools.
And now with a cap coming in as to how many international students can come, how are these academic institutions going to fund the gap that they've become accustomed to having this funding and now it's sort of being clawed back because with fewer students, less funds coming in?
Well, they're going to have a couple of options. One is to downsize, which is something that most organizations don't want to do. But the reality is, if you don't have enough money to go around, you're just going to have to cut the size of your operation. The other is the government may offer more funding. We haven't seen them quite make up the difference, but that'll have to be part of it. But really, it is a recognition that by closing off all other avenues for these institutions to get money, it really shouldn't be surprising that they went after the one that was the most lucrative in the
Right.
and the sort of one remaining open to them.
Okay, so putting international students and housing aside, what are some of the other impacts that large immigration growth has on society?
Yeah, we can talk about the infrastructure constraint, right? You mentioned off the top things like doctors, other sort of municipal and local services become overwhelmed. And so, most Canadians right now, younger people cannot find a family doctor. And so again, it's similar to housing. You introduce a lot more on the demand side. Now, I should add, there is an element of supply side resolution, right? Some of these immigrants are themselves doctors, are themselves professionals. So there is benefit there. But overall, the numbers simply increase the demand and supply is not keeping up.
My goodness. It seems, again, when we talk about immigration, some people have just never been for immigration. Others are looking for a more balanced approach. What you were highlighting here, and we'll continue to discuss this after the break, is simply some massive red flags, and it's not serving Canadians nor the new Canadian immigrants any well, not serving them well at all. We'll pick this up in just a moment.